welcome everybody to the Magic Beans podcast. We are back again for your listening pleasure with episode number 12. That's right, we are racking them up. I'm your host and my name is Shorty, and I am joined again by a bunch of beans on the line with me. Today I have Chewy. How you going, Chew?
Good, thanks for staying up late.
That's the way. And we also have Cracker. How you going, Cracker?
Good, mate. Yourself?
Yeah, I'm okay, considering that my wife is now over a week overdue from having this baby. I was not expecting to be on this podcast tonight, but here we are, and this baby is still not here. So
I feel really sorry for you and not your wife in this situation, right?
yeah. I'm really struggling with this. But hopefully the next couple of days. But yeah, Chewy, you've been pretty busy with work, so we are recording a late one tonight, which is a little bit different for us, and that sort of meant that a couple of the other guys couldn't be here, but we will still have some very good content for you, our listeners out there. So it's been a pretty exciting couple of weeks. As we previewed on the last podcast, there was a Mythic Championship coming up, Mythic Championship number 5. It's a tongue twister. You say that too many times. Mythic Championship. I'm glad they've moved away from that. But yeah, Mythic Championship. Now I can't even say it.
MC5, man.
MC5.
MC5.
Sounds like a bad 80s rapper.
Yes.
Whoa, hey now.
Or a good 80s rapper.
An 80s
I wouldn't say
rapper.
that either.
An 80s
Yes.
rapper. Yeah.
So anyway, that thing happened on the last weekend, and I managed to watch quite a bit of it. It was an arena Mythic Championship, so yeah, as we mentioned previously, it's quite good to watch. The watching experience is good with being able to see what's in everybody's hands and know exactly what's going on, and they run plenty of replay, so I certainly enjoyed watching a bit of that. Chewy, I know you watched a little bit. How much did you get to catch, and what did you think of it all?
I didn't get to see as much as I would have liked. As you mentioned, pretty busy with work, and that meant working Friday, Saturday and Sunday last week. So I got to watch a little bit of it live at work. Don't tell my boss, but streaming Twitch on my phone at my desk whilst doing night shift. So yeah, as you said, it's a great viewing experience in comparison to Paper Magic. The production's really good. The gameplay was
a really good job.
Yeah, and the gameplay was much better than I anticipated, and something we can get into as we go along. But
yeah, definitely.
I was expecting just like boring goal-loss mirrors for days, but people,
I think everybody was expecting that.
Yeah, so the people that brought the sort of anti-goal-loss decks, or just the other good deck in the Bant deck, sort of gave us something interesting to watch. They probably got creative with who was on the main stage with the pairings a little bit as well. But one of the things I really liked was the in-between match stuff, where in the past they would just show like effectively PowerPoint slides with music about, team series and things that you didn't really care about. They had the coverage team doing like a couch panel thing, like unpacking what happened in the matches or previewing the upcoming matches, and like it was a lot more engaging. So I like hats off to the coverage team for that. I think that's a big improvement over what we've seen in the past.
Yeah, they definitely did a pretty good job of sort of building a few storylines over the weekend of various players, and yeah, just getting to actually have a conversation with the players after matches and after they've been locked into day 2 and things like that in a professional manner was really different. Like in the tabletop Pro Tours, Mythic Championships, things like that, they'll generally interview somebody after their match sometimes, things like that, but it's always like just 2 people standing in the middle of a tournament hall sort of thing, and there's noise in the background, and it's uncomfortable and awkward, and this is nerds getting interviewed by sometimes sort of semi-professional broadcasters, and it's not all that engaging, but they did a much better job of that, and I'm assuming that before they got people up on those stages to have a chat with them on those couch settings, there was, I guess, a bit of a rundown about this is what we're going to talk about and that sort of stuff. So it wasn't a shock in the questions that people are getting asked. So yeah, I definitely enjoyed that as well. Did you manage to catch any of it, Cracker?
Yeah, I did. I saw a little bit. Not as much as I'd like. I want to go back and watch some of the VODs. But yeah, really impressed. They did a great job. One of the things that I liked as well were the little phone interviews they were interspersing through.
Yeah.
And they were also using those as like lead up bits. So you'd see them on Twitter and they'd have, just like a little 30-second interview with like Reed Duke, and they just ask a bunch of like, not even Magic related questions necessarily, but just kind of more about getting to know the players, which is a really good thing to do.
It's a really important part of Magic being an esport, because if you want it to be that, sport, people need someone to follow. Like, you got to
build personalities.
You got to have a team to follow in that sense. So
yeah, it's something that Cedric Phillips, who was actually on the broadcast team, he's been on the last couple of the Mythic the Arena championships, and he's obviously heavily involved in Star City games, does a lot of their coverage, that sort of thing. He's one of the most popular broadcasters for live Magic, so he does a really good job. But he has his own podcast, which sometimes he talks about Magic. A lot of the time he talks about wrestling and NBA. But he labels which episode it's going to be talking about, so that's good. You can skip the ones you don't want. But he's always been harping on about star building, and that's something that the Star City circuit's done a really good job of with their players' championships and things like that, where they do a lot of backgrounds on players and things like that. So for exactly that reason, it's like, sports stars, like you said, Chewy. If they're just faceless people playing whatever sport you're interested in and you don't know anything about them, you don't get as invested. Whereas if you know who that player is and why he's into Magic and when he got into Magic and what his background is and all that sort of stuff, you kind of get a little bit more invested in them personally.
Absolutely.
Which makes you then want to watch the tournament more and get into Magic more and that sort of stuff. So, yeah, they did a pretty good job of that through the weekend.
It's a much easier tournament for them to control as well. I mean, like the old school PTs are, there are hundreds of players in a convention centre as opposed to, they've got 64, 68 players.
68 in total.
Right. And then, so I know the day before the tournament, they get everyone in, they do a media prep day. So they're coaching people, not necessarily with the answers, but like, here's what we're going to do, here's how it's going to work. And it also means that they don't have to like worry about the dude that just won the feature match, grabbing him and hoping that he can converse coherently, right? You can kind of go, well, I've got BBD and I know he's going to spout a bunch of nonsense and he's kind of a big bombastic figure, right? And like, he just is, but that is a good interview, and like, that it's going to be funny and it's going to be fun. Or you can grab someone like Huey, who's going to give you some really good insightful information about like his position in the metagame and why they decided to put disdainful strokes in the main and stuff like that. So they can kind of pick which player they want to speak to about which thing, rather than just go, hey, so you outdrew your opponent last game, congratulations. It lets them kind of tailor what they're going to do, which must be really nice for Wizards to have that level of control. Yeah,
I really enjoyed the post-match interview with Kenji, with Numot the Nummy.
Yep.
When he locked himself in for day 2. I mean, I've watched, never watched him stream, but I have found myself watching playbacks of his drafts on YouTube. And like, he's very, I wouldn't call him arrogant, but he's very sure of himself, right? He's confident, and you're just not sure whether that's like the stream persona, but it either is him or he brought that to the interview, and he was very sure of himself in that, I played well. I made day 2 on the biggest stage against the best players. I feel like I played well enough and I chose the right deck to do that. And then, is it Becca who was doing those post-match interviews?
Becca Scott.
Yep. She was saying, so you've made Mythic on both constructed and limited on Arena. Like, how hard was that to do? And he's like, well, I'm pretty good at limited, So I really enjoyed that, because he, like, part of the star building is to see those personalities, and you've got people that are a bit reserved, you've got people that are really insightful, and then you've got people that bring that something else with their personality. So he's not trying to be funny like BBD would get up there and it's like, okay, I'm going to take every opportunity to try to make somebody laugh here, where Huey will be like, I'm very analytical and I will give you that analysis, where someone like Kenji is just like, hey, I'm just a streamer who happens to be pretty good at this game and I just proved it, so I'm pretty stoked with myself. And that's, I totally respect that. I think that's awesome.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, but don't you want to pay attention to him now? If he just gone and said, "Oh, yeah, no, I got really lucky," like he understands how to be entertaining and how to be engaging with an audience, and that's really what they need. And so that's why they put people like him on. So props to Wizards, well done. I know they had a few issues with like some of the clients crashing and stuff like that. There were games that
not
had to
ideal.
reset, which is pretty average.
I've watched Counter-Strike tournaments, and that still happens. And Counter-Strike tournaments have been filling 30,000 people arenas for 20 years, and it still happens. So it's just part of technology.
It's part of having a digital game. Like there's going to be things that are going to happen, programs going to crash, and that sort of stuff. So yeah, it definitely is not isolated to Magic, and I think they've handled it fairly well in most circumstances. I saw a few tweets on Twitter of people complaining that they were mid-match and they had to restart their match, or they were close to basically killing their opponent, and they had to restart their match, and then they lost. And
you can appreciate people's frustration there, right?
Yeah, definitely.
There's no way to gracefully resume that kind of
damage. Yeah, I'm actually surprised that I don't know if they do have this feature, and maybe it's something that's still in the works, but I don't know why there can't be a constant game log that keeps track of the state of a game and the order that the library's in and things like that, so that if that circumstance happens, it can just go, oh, we crashed, okay, yep.
It's a lot of data, man.
Yeah, I know.
There's no technical reason why that can't happen, but the constant logging, the technical limitation is just juice, right? Like to be able to do that in real time.
For a tournament like that, where you're only running, there's 68 players, they're not all playing at the same time. You've got maybe 24 matches going on at the same time, sort of thing at the most.
Yeah,
and
it's got to be built in the first place, so it's not the sort of thing you can just add as an afterthought.
I'm not an IT nerd like you guys, so I just build houses.
One more thing on the coverage, just before we start talking about the decks that people actually played. One of the things I really liked about it was because there was monitors in between the players, they didn't always show their poker face. I love this. Yeah, the best example of that was in the final when Javier Dominguez put Embercleave into play, and his opponent had mana up, could have had a counter spell, could have had an Ether Gust, or a number of things that would have blown him out. And just the look on his face was like, yeah, do you have it? And he was uncomfortably twisting in his chair. It was his real reaction, his real emotion. Whereas if he was playing in Paper Magic where his opponent could see him, he'd be stone-faced. So not only is it better, as in the game client's better and easier to keep track of what things are at, what's an elk on the battlefield and what's not.
Everything is the answer.
Everything is an elk.
Everything's an elk, yeah. But you get to see, a little bit more. Some players are just stone-faced no matter what, but some of the players, let their guard down in that sense because their opponent couldn't actually see them, and that made it much better for us watching.
It brings a bit of humanity into it and lets you have that human connection, where you go, that's exactly how I react when I'm sitting at home playing Arena and, I top deck the card that I needed. I'm jumping out of my chair and I'm, pumping my fist in the air and things like that. And I said to you,
I'm breathing through my fist.
You never see that in tabletop.
No, that's right.
In tabletop, and that's a thing that's kind of annoyed me for a while. It's like, if you celebrate when you win something in tabletop, it's like, oh, no, you shouldn't celebrate. That's, going over the top. That's rude to your opponents or whatever. And it's like, no, you just won. Why shouldn't you celebrate? You win a footy match and what do? You run around going, yeah, we're the best.
Yeah, exactly.
That's what you do.
You sing a song even, yeah. That's it.
Just to rub it in even more.
I'm going to be really conscious of how often I, have my fist up to my mouth and breathe into it like I do when I'm nervous about stuff.
Yes.
We've seen your draft videos, man. Quite often is the answer.
Oh, really?
Yep.
Oh, somebody actually watches them. That's nice.
Yeah, buddy. I watch them. Don't worry.
All right. So heading into the tournament, the big bad wolf, well, there was a few wolves in the tournament, was Bant Golos. And I think we spoke about it a little bit on the previous podcast that the deck lists had been released, and it was 40-something% of the metagame was Bant Golos, which was pretty much what everybody expected. I don't have the metagame breakdown in front of me, but there was a lot of Bant goal loss, a lot of Simic food.
42%.
Yeah, and then a whole bunch of other random bits and pieces sort of strewn in there. But the goal loss was kind of the story of the event, and everybody was expecting, like Chewy said, just to have a whole bunch of mirror matches, goal loss versus goal loss, really long games, really boring, that sort of thing. And whether it was Wizards managing to pick the games that they were showing or what the go was, but I didn't see much of that, and I watched a fair bit of the coverage. So, yeah, we thought we'd have a bit of a talk about some of the decks that we did see there and what were the winning decks. So, Cracker, I know you've got a list of decks in front of you. Do you want to take us off on that one?
I do. I've got the whole list here, but I thought I might just quickly run through the top 8. So, as we mentioned, congratulations, Javier Dominguez, the world champion from last year. We were talking about his sweet card, the Fervent Champion. He's going back to Worlds again this year because he just won this one with Gruul Aggro. So, red-green, super aggressive, built to basically just get under goal loss for the most part, and then trample over with Embercleave for the win.
Unfortunately, not playing his signature card.
He did not, which seems like just a wasted opportunity.
Yeah.
But that's exactly what he did in the finals. He beat Bant Golos. And then from there on out, it was Bant Food, Bant Ramp, Simic Food, Mardu Knights, Simic Food, Mono Red Cavalcade. Can you pick the theme for most of the top 8 there, boys?
Blue and green.
Blue and green. So the most played card in the whole tournament was Once Upon a Time. As we said, free spells, broken. And then the next most played card was actually Hydroid Krasis, Growth Spiral, Veil of Summer, Circuitous Route. So the top 5 cards are all green. So it's kind of insane how much it's dominating at the moment. The Simic blue-green colour pair, and then splashing white quite often for things like Teferi and some of the other fun stuff, is currently the top of standard, despite
Certainly
the fact that red-green won. That was it's an interesting point to make, and something that people who played Magic for a long time understand is top 8s are not necessarily the best gauge of what a format actually is.
No, just because Gruul Aggro won does not mean that Gruul Aggro is the best deck. In fact, it's probably nowhere near the best deck. And even Javier Dominguez himself, he was not going to play that deck. And then, like, literally the morning of submitting deck lists, he was like, I'm going to play this deck. Submitted his deck, and then for the next few days was just going, why the hell did I submit that deck? I should not be playing that deck.
Well, he actually got through on the minimum record you could as well.
Yeah,
so he scraped into day 2, he scraped into day 3, and he was like, lowest ranked.
Yeah, he just got in on tiebreakers on the 2 days. Well, lowest rank going into the.
And then he just managed to run through, the top 8.
Well, the next best result with Gruul Aggro only had 3 wins for the entire tournament.
Yeah.
Yep.
And then 1 win, no wins with Gabby Sparts. Out of the four Gruul decks in
Poor Gabby.
Rough.
She's in good company. Like, she is.
Yes.
Ben Stark is also there on 0 wins. So.
Who had a free pass into day 2 by winning his split.
Paulo Vito Damo de Rosa, 1 win for the whole event. So, when you've got 68 of the best players in the world, there's going to be some players that don't do so well. Like
those last 2 players, literally in the Magic Hall of Fame.
Yeah, absolutely.
Paulo's top 5 of players all time. So
yeah, absolutely. Like Raf Levy, 1 win. Like some of the
somebody's got to lose. So
exactly.
That's what happens, right?
Yeah.
So I think the big story from the weekend, was that there was a lot of goal loss, but basically every deck that was not goal loss was built to beat it. We saw a lot of the Simic decks, which is blue-green, in case you can't remember. A lot of them playing things like 4 of Disdainful Stroke in the main deck. And Disdainful Stroke is a counter spell. It's 1 and a blue that counters a spell with converted mana cost 4 or greater. So it counters Circuitous Route, which is one of the really big ramp spells for the Golos deck. It counters Golos itself. Can counter big Hydro Krasis if you feel like doing that. They still get the triggers from it, but there's a whole bunch of really powerful stuff that it counters in the Golos deck that can just shut it down. What's his name? Oko.
Yeah.
I think Oko was the other big...
It can't counter Oko.
It can't counter Oko, but Oko was the other big the big showing from the weekend.
That card's so good.
Yeah, and like we sort of joked as we were getting into this, just elks everywhere. Doesn't matter what you play, it's going to get turned into an elk. And that was quite frustrating. I could see a lot of people getting very frustrated at looking at cards in their hand going, yeah, I can play this creature, and you've got an Oko on the other side of the battlefield, so it's just going to be a 3/3 next turn, and that's not what I need. So, yeah, interesting.
Do you think that some of the power of Javier's deck was everything had haste, so he was getting value out of it anyway, but he was playing 3/3s anyway?
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah, if you're turning my guys into 3/3s, that's probably an upgrade.
Yeah, that's it.
A lot of them are 3/1s and things like that, but... Yeah, like from what he said, he built his deck specifically for the Golos matchup, and I think he just managed to get lucky enough to win a bunch of games against Golos and sort of sneak his way through and get there in the end. But the Gruul aggro deck is definitely not a very well-placed deck going forward. And even, like, you look at that top 8, and it's very diverse. You know, leading into it, everyone would have picked at least 4 copies of Golos in the top 8, and there's 1.
Yeah,
I don't know that I'd call it very diverse, man. You've got Bant, Simic,
Simic. But they've got different names.
They do. Sure they do. And they've got 60 cards that are the same.
Yeah.
So, and I guess that's the real point of the tournament. Like, the Golos, the Field of the Dead decks, let's be clear that that's kind of the main draw card to that deck was Field of the Dead. It didn't underperform, but it didn't overperform either. It had like a 50% win rate. So it's good, but it's not busted, which is what everyone was saying. And the reason it wasn't busted is because everyone was gunning for it. But all these blue-green decks just overperformed, basically. They did better than everyone expected. And that was because they were tuned very specifically to beat, Field of the Dead, which they no longer have to be concerned about.
Yeah, not a problem anymore.
Nope.
No. So, as we mentioned on the previous podcast, Wizards had announced that they were bringing forward the next ban update. Ban and restricted... Oh, man, I cannot talk this late at night. Banned and restricted announcement.
Got prego brain.
Yeah, that's it. That's sympathy pregnant brain. So that happened on the Monday following the Mythic Championship, and as pretty much everybody expected, Field of the Dead got the ban, as well as Arkham's Astrolabe in Pauper, if you're into the Pauper format. I have dabbled into that myself, but not really something that we sort of speak about on here all that much. But from what I've heard, that was causing a lot of grief in the Pauper format with everybody just playing 5 colours. But the big one is the Field of the Dead. So, yeah, we all pretty much expected it. I don't think any of us on here were shocked that it actually happened. It was pretty much what the whole world was expecting.
I think what we were waiting on, like everyone knew that was going to get banned. What the main speculation was there going to be something from the Simic deck, which is everyone's assuming is going to be the next best deck. Were they going to ban Oko or something from that deck to...
I heard a lot of people speculating about Nissa being a better target.
Yeah.
Because she's also an army in a can. Yeah, doubles your mana and isn't the chase mythic from the most current set.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's really hard to tell because you look at the results from this Mythic Championship and you go, okay, Field of the Dead wasn't that powerful. 50% win rate, 1 copy in the top 8, that sort of thing, and then they've still banned it. But it was a very, very hostile environment. Everybody was gunning for that deck, knowing that it was going to be the highest percentage. And
it came second. Let's not forget that, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So it was kind of expected that it wouldn't have the best weekend because of the field that it was playing in, but it was still really powerful. The issue is that everyone's decks were warped around playing against that deck. It was like when we were playing against Hogak in Modern, all of a sudden everybody's decks are warped around having to play against that deck, and that's not good. That restricts a lot of deck building options and creativity, and that's not what Wizards wants. They want people to be able to buy the cards and play with the cards that they want to play with. So yeah, it's definitely still an issue, and that's why they've gone ahead and banned it.
Yeah, and even though we talk about the top 8 only having 1 banned Golos, from 9 to 15 place in this tournament were all Golos decks. Yeah. So it's it put...
And that's tiebreakers, right? That's literally the same win rate as the dude who won the tournament. They all had basically the same total number of wins and losses. It was just who they won against versus who they lost against to place them in the top 8. So
exactly.
you're talking about just like tiny, tiny percentage points between, 8th and 16th effectively.
Yeah, exactly.
So yeah, the next thing, as Cracker mentioned, was people wondering, are they going to ban Oko? Are they going to ban Nissa? That sort of stuff. I think they've done the right thing and not banned anything else. They've done it in the past where they've hit things like Reflector Mage when they were banning some other cards in Standard at the same time, just because they looked at it and went, oh no, this card's going to be too powerful now, that sort of stuff. I think with the format being as young as it is, with Throne of Eldraine only being really legal in Standard
like
for
a month.
Even. Like it's not very long. I think by taking out Field of the Dead, which was just such an oppressive end game that no other decks could go bigger against, it allows people to a bit of room to breathe. So one thing that we haven't seen in decks when Field of the Dead's been really popular is spot removal. Like, there's no point playing destroy target creature spells because people are just generating multiple zombies a turn. So all you're playing is board wipes and things like that can deal with multiple creatures. As soon as you get rid of that issue where you're no longer having to deal with that, you can now build decks and forget about the board wipes and start playing individual cards that are good in certain situations and things like that. So
it means that we can have a real control deck again. And as much as I like to complain, as much as I wanted to complain about Esper from a little while ago, right? Because it was kind of the best deck for a bit there. It actually lets them have the opportunity to target it. And in doing so, it will bring Simic down a little bit, which means that the aggro decks, which have been really absent because they couldn't punch through a bunch of the previous mid-range decks, will get the chance to come up a little bit because now they have this gap against control where they usually do quite well. So it seems like it gives us the opportunity to move into a really nice kind of rock, paper, scissors format. Now, whether it plays out like that, whether it pans out that, that's possible, or whether, Simic's engine is just too strong and the control decks can't keep up, who knows? It's too soon to tell. But it gives the opportunity for that metagame to evolve where you just couldn't beat playing a land, making 4 zombies. It just was unbeatable for a control deck to keep up with.
The health of the format, and there's cool decks out there like Simic Flash that will probably have a decent matchup against the Simic deck because they can just counter their key spells. But when you just start making zombies and you don't even have to cast a spell, I think there was one of the MPL splits. The Golos player didn't cast a spell at all in the game against Simic Flash.
Seth Manfield.
Yeah. And just started making zombies and won the game. Didn't actually put a spell onto the stack. Yeah.
So stupid.
So that's when you know you've got a problem.
Yeah. So going forward, I haven't played Standard in the last week, pretty much since the banning. I've just been doing some drafts this week because I've got a ton of gold that I need to spend, and I'm getting my value out of all my drafts. But I have a Mogul challenge for tomorrow night, pending being in the hospital having a child. I have no idea what to play. Give me a deck. Well, I know, Chew, you've been playing your Golos Fires deck.
I've been alternating between the Fires with the Cavaliers and the Simic Food deck. Okay. I wanted to give that a whirl. I ran out because the Simic Fires deck used up all my wild cards. I'm short a couple of questing beasts, so I'm playing the Hydra that fights when it comes into play in that slot. But deck is crazy powerful. As Cracker alluded to before, Nissa is a really good Magic card. Yep. And just the mid-rangey games are pretty fun, and there's kind of enough value built into your creatures and planeswalkers that you don't often run out of gas, and you've also got Hydro Krasis to refill. So it's, if you enjoy that mid-range, like the classic The Rock, with a bit of an aggro slant, it's awesome. But if I was going to play a tournament tomorrow, it's really hard to go past Fires. It's just such a powerful deck when it works. And the other day I was playing and my mono red opponent beat me down to 1 life, and I had a Bone Crusher Giant in play, and I cast 2 spells and 20'd them. And that felt awesome. Like it was... so it can just kind of win out of nowhere. So I'd play that. Like, the deck's cool. The deck's also fun, and it's really powerful. So that would be my recommendation.
I'll have to see how my wildcard situation's going and what deck I'm close to playing. But I'm tipping I probably don't make this next challenge match. But we'll see how we go.
In best of 3, you need to have Sorcerer's Spyglass in your board and just name Oko, even if you do it blind.
Fair enough.
Because Cavaliers don't make great elks.
Yeah. Yep. So there is actually, and this is one of the reasons why they brought the BNR announcement forward. There is actually another Mythic Championship V, in 2 weeks on November the 8th to the 10th. This is going to be in Richmond, and it's standard again. So, like, it's literally 3 weeks between the Mythic Championships. It's good
Worth
planning.
noting that this is the traditional paper one.
Yes, it
right.
will be,
So this is like the old PTs where they had 4 a year. So this will be like probably 400 people in a convention centre, as opposed to these very small arena tournaments.
Yeah, so there'll still be coverage. It won't be on arena, so it'll look like standard tabletop tournaments, but it'll be interesting to see. So the pros have basically, I'm assuming a lot of them would have known, or not known, like not had inside knowledge or anything like that, but they all would have been working under the assumption that Field of the Dead was going to get the ban. So they'd probably already been planning prior to the previous Mythic Championship for what to do post. But they basically got 3 weeks to come up with something new. So we should have a podcast out before that next one. And we'll be seeing what comes out of that weekend, and that, I guess, that will sort of shape the metagame going forward from here, but I'm hoping it will be quite diverse. So the other
I've got some spells I want to cast, though. I want to cast Stitcher's Supplier, and I want to cast Nantuko Husk and Rally the Ancestors.
Yes, well, I think what you're alluding to there, Cracker, is the other bombshell announcement that we got on Monday.
Surprise, everybody.
Everybody was expecting, of course, the banner restricted announcement, and Wizards decided to drop something else, that they have created another new format. So they've been doing this a bit lately. we've
Historic and Brawl and
historic now. And
I think this one's actually good, though.
This one is very good.
So this one is called Pioneer, and it's basically new modern, effectively. It is from the every set that's been released from Return to Ravnica, which was 2006, I believe, that was released. No, that doesn't sound right. 2011? I should have looked that up. Anyway, Return to Ravnica onwards. So a whole bunch of the most recent sets. I think there's about 20-something sets that are in that pool. And that will be the new non-rotating format. So every set that gets released from now on will get added to the Pioneer card pool. And it has started off with a ban list, as most non-rotating formats tend to have some sort of ban list. And
10 cards on it, on the ban list.
5 cards. It's only 5 cards. And
the other fetches aren't in there, man.
Yeah, they've banned, right off the bat, they've banned the fetch lands from Karn's block. Yeah, the enemy fetch lands. So the original Zendikar fetches, which are the allied fetch lands, they are the other way around.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Yeah.
The Zendikar fetches are too old. The original Zendikar set is not, was released before Return to Ravnica. So they are not included. So they've banned the fetch lands from Karn's block. So it's something that a lot of people have spoken about for a long time, that fetch lands kind of, it allows you to have really good mana bases really easy. And
they're really powerful. Really, really powerful.
And in tabletop tournaments, it leads to a lot of shuffling. You're always cracking fetch lands at the end of your opponent's turn and going and getting a land and then shuffling up and then giving your deck to your opponent, and they've got to shuffle it and give it back to you. So it just adds a whole bunch of extra time. But by not having them in the format, that it forces you to have awkward mana bases, which leads to creative deck building. And I think it's a good idea right off the bat. So, Cracker, I think you're pretty excited about this format. It's for me, I've kind of looked at it and gone, I don't even know where to start, but I know you've got a few ideas. So what's sort of taken your fancy right off the bat?
When they first announced it, I went, what are they doing? Like, why would they do this? I was actually really just like, I don't understand where they're going with this at all. Because, there's Historic, which is the new format on Arena, which is, like just current standard plus a couple of other sets. But the more I thought about it, I was like, actually, this seems really sweet. And I think that this would be really fun, certainly to start with. So it made us all, like, our Discord kind of blew up with the beans just chatting about like previous standard decks that we thought would be sweet and like how you could adapt them to include new cards from sets that didn't exist at the time. So some of the cards that I was just referring to was when I was just getting back into Magic a few years ago now. One of the decks that was kind of popular towards the end of one of the standard seasons was called Rally the Ancestors. And basically people just played a whole stack of cheap creatures in usually the Abzan colours, so white, black, green. And they were just value creatures, right? They're all like 1 and 2 cost, and they had some, triggered abilities for things. And basically
they had either comes into play or when they die triggers usually.
Exactly. And so you basically just wanted to throw a whole bunch of stuff out there, have it all die, and then play this card, the namesake of the deck, which is Rally the Ancestors. And I'll quickly read it. It's an instant, it's white X, and it says, return each creature card with converted mana cost of X or less from your graveyard to the battlefield, and creatures at the beginning of your next end step. So you basically, you get them back for like a turn. And the combo is that you do it in your opponent's end step, and then you can untap, attack them, and then you can sacrifice them all to like a bunch of these creatures that say, sacrifice another creature, like Nantuku Husk, which I was referring to, which is sacrifice a creature, it gets +2/+2 until end of turn. So they're free sacrifice outlets, which is really important. And then there are other cards like Zulaput Cutthroat, which will deal a damage to an opponent for each creature that dies under your control. So you can kind of just burn someone out from, a fairly high number quite quickly. And so there's lots of other really powerful spells. They were playing like Collected Company, which is another 4-mana instant that lets you look at the top 6 cards of your library and put 2 creatures with converted mana cost 3 or less into the battlefield. So lots of just really fun stuff. And I'm like, hey, we can do broken graveyard things. We should look at broken graveyard things. So, and the other place that I jumped to was Mono Blue Tempo. I really enjoyed, from just recently the deck where you just put Curious Obsession on, a little flyer and just didn't let people play spells.
You can play Mono Blue Devotion, which was a big deck too. From Theros era.
I saw people playing
add in a few Tempest Gins and things like that.
Yeah, Nightveil Spectre in that deck.
Yep.
So there's kind of this whole world of interest, because some of the really broken things that we've talked about previously from Modern, like Tron and Fetchlands and Blood Moon and all of the like really broken artifacts aren't going to be in this format. So it's going to be really interesting to see what we can do. But there are some truly, truly broken things that are still in this format. So there are cards like Dig Through Time and Treasure Cruise and Emrakul the Promise End and Ulamog and Aetherworks Marvel, and all these cards have been banned in various formats. Treasure Cruise and Dig Through Time are restricted in Vintage, which means you get to play 1 copy of each. Black Lotus is restricted in Vintage, so like it gives you an idea.
Must be just as good.
It's better. Treasure Cruise is basically Ancestral Recall.
Yeah, I think the difference in this format is not having the fetches.
Yes.
By not having the fetches, those delve spells are nowhere near as powerful as they are in the other formats that do have the fetch lands. So
absolutely, but it's going to be really fun to see, okay, so let me stick it in a deck with Smuggler's Copter, which lets me loot every turn. How quickly can I fill up my graveyard? So, I follow a lot of Magic people on Twitter because it's great for that, and there are like thousands of deck lists. Literally, if you go to MTG Goldfish now and look up the Pioneer lists, there are literally thousands of deck lists already in 2 days. It's amazing.
It's the Wild West. It is the absolute Wild West out there.
Well, you've started playing, Chewy. Tell us about it.
Well, as you said just when you were talking about the rally decks, most people have sort of defaulted to their favorite or the most powerful, the most busted decks from Standard from recently, and then thinking about the cards that they get to improve them. So one of the favorite decks of mine and Shorty's over the last little while is the God Pharaoh's Gift refurbish with Angel of Invention shenanigans. We played that deck at the last actual nationals that existed, and I think we both kind of remember that deck pretty fondly. So I went, I've got a bunch of these cards on Magic Online, so I don't need to buy anything to play that deck. So I jumped on this morning because I started work late, so I spent my morning doing a league on Magic Online. Took me a little bit to get used to the old client again, but I put together an Esper version of the GPG, and it's pretty good at filling its graveyard. Esper gives you Thought Erasure on 2 to go with your Charter Course, Strategic Planning, Search for Riscanter, as well as Champion of Wits. You can fill up your graveyard pretty quickly, so I topped off my curve with 2 copies of Treasure Cruise, but I don't think they're actually what I want in the deck. But some of the notable upgrades that the deck gets from apart from Thought Erasure is it gets Teferi Time Reveler. So when you played against counterspell decks with this deck previously, it was all about trying to resolve your refurbish, and you had to have your own negate, and if they had a second counterspell, then you're in all sorts of strife. But Teferi kind of fixes that, helps you against the mid-range decks. It's pretty good, and I took advantage of the Esper-ness of it and put in some Scarab God as well. And you also get Fatal Push, Thoughtseize, Ritual of Soot, those sorts of cards in your sideboard. And the deck seems, I think from a Wild West like week 1, the deck is coherent. It's proven it's really powerful. It's got good game against control decks, which probably don't really exist in a sort of tuned form because the format's so all over the place anyway. The aggressive decks can be beaten by just attacking on turn 4 with a 6/6 flying vigilance lifelinker, and the mid-range decks, you've got so much value and recursion with Scarab God, with Teferi, with Champion of Wits. So I think for and Thought Erasure. So I think for a deck early in the format, it's something I'm pretty excited about exploring. In 3 months' time, when the format's closer to being solved, I don't know where it will end up, but right now, I'm a big fan of the deck. It's awesome. It's fun to play, and it's good at the moment, I think. So I went 3-2 in a league this morning, and one of the game 3s I lost was I drew 4 spells and 9 lands, so it's pretty hard to win. But I played against 5 different decks, so it is truly the Wild West. I played against green-white beatdown deck. I played against a Rally of the Ancestors, blue-red prowess. I played against I can't remember off the top of my head now, but mono blue, kind of like the deck you were talking about with Curious Obsession. There's a wizard, a 2-mana 2/1 wizard that if you play, if a creature comes into play effect, it triggers twice. So they had that with the Master of Waves and made
made all the elementals.
Nice.
all the elementals. Yeah. I then bounced a Master of Waves with Teferi. That was pretty fun. But
that kills all the elementals in case you don't know everyone else.
Yeah.
They all die.
They all die. Yeah. So, but yeah, the deck's super cool, and it is the brewer's paradise out there at the moment. You can play whatever you want, and because everything's based on previous standard decks at the moment, there's no new pioneer decks out there that I know of. It's all just standard decks with upgrades, upgraded mana bases, and then the addition of cards that kind of can plug the weakness of the deck. So yeah, it's super fun if you can handle playing the old client, then I highly recommend it. It's super good. It's fun.
Yeah.
That's a point worth mentioning. It's not going to be on Arena, right? Because we're talking about sets that go back a number of years now. They've said at this stage that they're not porting it across. So it's Magic Online, and it will be a paper format. Wizards are throwing a huge amount of support behind this. Shorty, have you seen what they've got slated?
Yes, I know that there are actual PTs next year, that this is the format. So some of the PTQs and some of the Magic Fests and things like that will actually be Pioneer, and I think fairly early on in the year next year as well. So
yeah, I think 4 of the first 6 or 7 Magic Fests or Grand Prix are a Pioneer.
See, this is the format that everyone was hoping Historic would be. When Wizards said, hey, don't worry about your cards that are rotating at a Standard, we've got something sweet for you guys to do with them afterwards, this is what it should have been. They should have been going nuts programming all these cards, and even if they didn't go back to RTR, even if they did go to like Origins or Khans or something like that, which is a little more recent, I mean, everyone would have been bananas still. Everyone would have just been completely over the moon with like how sweet it is. But instead now we've got another format, right? And I'm keen. I was saying in the Discord, like I've played Magic Online a couple of times about 5 years ago. I think I did a couple of the free drafts and stuff and then just went, I don't understand what's going on. But now I'm like, it might be time to download this thing again and like see if I can, rent some cards and play this, because it just seems like just fun.
Exactly. I agree with you 100%. It is what we've wanted. It's what Modern used to be when it first was made a format. So I think it's refreshing and something that, I think as a Standard can be dominated by a couple of decks, as we've seen.
It's a mid-range format typically, right? It's usually based a lot around creatures and things, and you kind of, at the moment we're restricted to 5 sets. And what do we say this is now? Like Pioneer's going to be 20 sets, something like that. So you've just got a massive amount of tools to draw from.
Half of the sets that are in Pioneer are already on Arena. When they ran the betas of, like the closed beta of Arena, they had Armanked and Kaladesh and those sorts of sets on there already. So it's not that many. It still is a lot of sets, but it's not that many for them to put on. So it is a little bit confusing, but yeah.
So Shorty, Chewy and I have been talking about the decks that we're interested in playing in this wild west of a format, but it seems like one of your pet decks might have a second life here. We might be able to put some Arclight Phoenixes back into play and attack some people with some bin chickens.
Yeah, I think the old Blue-Red Phoenixes maybe could come back. You've got the Phoenixes, you've got the Thing in the Ices. Thing in the Ices? I don't know if
Things
that's the right way.
In the Ice.
Things in the Ice, that's the way. You got those, which is, I guess, the meat of the deck, but you're missing all the cantrips. Like, I think we've got Opt.
Yep.
And
that new adventure. There's that new adventure dude that instant speed lets you loot once.
Yeah. That's about it.
Charter Course?
It's pretty slow.
Maybe. Yeah, it's. The strength of the Phoenix deck was the being able to cast multiple 1-mana, either cantrips or discard spells and that sort of stuff to fill your graveyard and get that spell count up really quick. And we're not going to have that. The Blue-Red Phoenix decks have been semi-successful in previous Standards recently, but I don't know. I'll give it a crack.
Hear me out.
Yeah, who knows?
Goblin Electromancer. Huh?
Yes.
That's all I got. Radical
that
Ideas, Goblin Electromancer, Charter Course.
Well, that's basically what the Standard deck was a little while ago.
It may not be powerful enough in the face of things like Copycat Combo, which we didn't mention, but that seems like a really good, powerful deck.
But I think one of the things that so people are doing two things. I think they're going, this was a really good Standard deck and it gets upgrades, and then people go, well, this is a deck that is in Modern or was in Modern that has a lot of cards that are from these sets. And I think depending on where you sit, you kind of look at each of the decks through a different lens. If you're going, here's a Standard deck that gets a better mana base, or it gets this upgraded card or cards, and that's amazing, then people are pretty excited about that. But if you go, it's not as good as the Modern deck, then I don't think it's going to work. you look at it, you look at it more negatively. But when you're looking at something in the context of modern, if you can't play a Pioneer deck in modern and expect it to do well, right? It's just not going to. But if you play a strategy like Phoenix that has been good in standard, if you look at it as a standard deck, but you go, well, I get the Checkland mana base to go with my Steam Vents, so my mana's going to be more consistent, and I do get these other cantrips now or whatever other upgrades I might get, even sideboard cards, then it is going to be better than a standard deck. And there has been times in standard where it's been, tier 1.5, maybe even tier 1. So I think it's definitely worth exploring. It could be really viable. Like, it's a powerful effect.
Yeah, definitely. The other thing is, it's all relative. So you go, oh yeah, it's
exactly.
It's either not powerful enough for modern or whatever, but the power level is relative to the other decks that are have either gotten better or gotten worse with the restricted card pool. So yeah, who knows? Like, we don't know what sort of metagame we're going to be seeing.
It's been legal for one day, let's point out, right?
Yeah,
it's been on Magic Online today, and that's it.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
honestly, I think the best approach is to do something proactive and as broken as you can possibly do.
Yeah, I've seen a lot of people tweeting that if you're not playing a deck that you're trying to get banned, then you're doing it wrong.
Yeah.
Basically.
Yeah.
So, yeah, you should be trying. There's enough broken things in this format that you can do something that really should be banned. So,
speaking of bans, there's currently only 5 cards on that list, but Aaron Forsyth, who is one of the heads of R&D at Wizards of the Coast, has tweeted saying, we're monitoring this really closely, expect there to be a bunch of very aggressive bans very early on, which is what they did with the early days of Modern, right, where they basically had a couple of big tournaments. There was one big PT where there was like the crazy Blazing Shoal infect decks that could kill people on turn 2, and everyone just went, okay, that's enough of that, and then they banned it all out and everything settled down. So expect that to happen in this, right? If you think a card was too good, maybe don't throw a whole lot of money at it.
Yeah, so I think one of the big differences between this and when Modern first started, Modern started with quite a big ban list. They kind of went, okay, what cards have been banned in Standard, what cards have been banned in Legacy, that sort of stuff. Yeah. So there was a whole bunch of stuff like, Jason Mind Sculptor and things like that were all started on the ban list in Modern. And then over time, very, very, very slowly, they've released some of those cards off the ban list, but it's still quite big. Whereas this format, this is a new experience. Like, I think, Chewy, you were saying that this is like when Modern started, but it's different. There are 5 cards, which are 5 lands, and that's it. And you can go nuts with whatever you want. And we've never had that before. It's a completely new experience.
It's pretty cool.
It's really exciting. And that leads back to the disappointment that this isn't on Arena. Like, I really want to play this format, but I am not playing Magic Online. It's not going to happen. And I know some of our local stores, like the Ringwood Next Level Games, they're playing, I think it's Thursday nights, is it?
Yeah,
right?
Yep.
They're doing Thursday Night Pioneer, which we generally record our podcast every second Thursday, so yeah, maybe we can get there on the off Thursday. But stores are going to run it, so people are going to be wanting to play it. They're going to be jumping on Magic Online. It's really disappointing to not have it on Arena, which, who knows, maybe they will get it on there. But yeah, I think a good place to start if you are looking at getting into Pioneer is look at what's been powerful in Standard and try and port that over. If you're a brewer, which I've done some brewing in my past, but at the moment I've got too many things going on and my brain's not working good enough, then go for it. You've got a million things you can do and find something cool and broken. Otherwise just start tuning old decks. There's a good article that Saffron Olives put up on Goldfish. He's done his part 1 a couple of days ago, so I'm assuming there's a part 2 coming soon where he's gone through 15 or so powerful Standard decks that are going to be legal in Pioneer and giving them upgrades. Just sort of quickly looking through the list, you got your blue and your black Devotions, some Burn, the Abzan decks like the Rally and the mid-range decks. There's dragons. You got all the Esper dragons that we
I
played
love that deck.
in Khan's block. We get like your Silumgar's Scorn, which is counter spell if you've got a dragon in your hand. Eldrazi, the whole Eldrazi block, the Oath of the Gatewatch. You've got all your Thought-Knot Seers, Reality Smashers, all that sort of stuff.
Oh, fast mana.
Not really.
No, you got Eldrazi Temple. Yeah.
Do you?
Yeah. You just don't have the
No, I don't
Eye of
think you
Ugin.
do. There's no Eldrazi Temple. That's from original Zendikar, isn't it? I think. I'm pretty sure that's not in Pioneer. So if you're unsure of what's not in Pioneer, Scryfall, which is way better than Gatherer for finding your cards, very quickly added a Pioneer function to their searches and a legality for Pioneer. And no, Eldrazi Temple is not legal in Pioneer. So yeah, there's no fast mana there. Yeah, what else have we got here?
Insole
so
Artifacts.
Yeah, Insole Artifacts. Oh, that was a good Pro Tool, that one.
Yeah, I played against that this morning. That was one of the other decks
Yeah,
I played.
right, there you
Yeah.
go.
Yeah, there's humans and spirits, the energy decks, the delirium decks.
Delirium
there's
with Emrakul.
There's a ton
and,
of, yeah,
I mean,
ton
all
of
the
good
energy
decks there.
decks.
The
I'm
energy
pretty
decks,
keen to work on two of my favourite cards ever. I've always loved Quarter Calling. A very soft spot in my heart for that. And being able to pair that with Collected Company, those two just, I love those two. I've no idea what I would build with that. Probably some sort of aristocrat style combo thing. There's no... You've got the Druid, the Vizier of Remedy, sorry. That's in Pioneer, but there's no Devoted Druid, and there's also no Persist creatures, which work really well with the Vizier of Remedy, so can't do that, but I'm sure we can find something to do with those two.
You could do Elves with Endrace Forerunners as your finisher instead of Hoof.
Yeah, yep. So there's plenty to do. Lots of brewing to be done. There's going to be deck lists everywhere. And yeah, if you can stomach it, then get back on Magic Online and give it a crack on there. So,
More the point, get to your local game store and play with real people in person.
Yeah, definitely. Yep.
It's something we need to do.
Something we do not do enough of. But we would definitely love to do some more. But yeah, if your local game store is running these tournaments, then go and check them out. I mean, for me, like around Return to Ravnica, or Return to Ravnica was legal in Standard when I started getting right back into playing Magic, whenever that was. So I have a lot of these cards, and one thing we haven't spoken about yet, which we will do a topic on for one of our podcasts, is managing collections and that sort of stuff. So I have pretty much since, what was the block after Theros? Was that Khans?
Yeah.
I think it was, yeah. Pretty much since Khans, I have bought a booster box and a bundle, or the fat packs as they used to be called, of every set since then. So, and then because I was playing Standard in that format, I bought some Return to Ravnica cards and some Theros cards, that sort of stuff. So for me, this format is perfect because I can't afford really being able to go and buy, drop $400 on Mox Opals, or $500, $600, however much they are now, things like that. That's not possible for me. Whereas this format is quite recent and should be fairly affordable from what we're seeing with most of the decks. So
2012 RTR came out.
2012.
Yeah, October
okay,
2012.
Yep. So, yeah, I think this is going to be a very popular format. There was a format called Frontier that was getting pushed a couple of years ago from a few stores, but that sort of never went anywhere, didn't have the official Wizard support, but this is looking like it's going to be very well supported and very pushed, so it's going to be pretty exciting. And yeah, like Cracker said, they're planning on being fairly heavy with the bans, or they're fairly willing to ban stuff, which I definitely would be expecting pretty quickly. I'm assuming that they'll watch the leagues on Magic Online and they'll start banning stuff. Probably, I would assume there would be a reasonable ban list before they start playing any players tours and things like that early next year. So.
Yeah, I reckon you've got till the end of the year before they start. And I don't know that they'll be heavy, but I think they're just willing to accept that it's inevitable. And I think they'll try and be as surgical as they can. So they might take out something like Felidar Guardian, right, which we've seen. Was that banned?
Yes,
it was banned because it goes infinite with Saheeli Rai.
Yeah,
so,
with Saheeli, yep.
I wouldn't be surprised if we see cards like that, or like Aetherworks Marvel or something, which doesn't hit a whole bunch of other decks. It just kills that one particular potentially overpowered archetype. So, yeah.
How much stock do you think they'll put into Magic Online results? Like if Aetherworks Marvel, as an example, puts up 5-0 results, 20% more than the next best deck, do you think that will be enough to qualify a ban, or do you think they'll wait for an actual event?
I reckon I would hope that they would give it a good couple of months. I don't know when the first major tournament is, and I'm assuming that like Star City and that sort of stuff, they're not going to change any of their scheduled events for the rest of the year. So I don't think there'll be a major event till, I don't know, middle to end of January. So I would hope that they would give it a good 2 months maybe to close to the end of the year to really get a lot of data. Because, you're going to have, someone's going to build a deck. It's going to go on Twitter and it's going to be, this is the broken deck for Pioneer. And that's going to start the shaping of a metagame, because people are going to start having something that they have to build around. And if the metagame can react to that well enough, then its percentages come down and then it evens out. But if it doesn't, then that's the sort of thing that they can look at. So I don't know. Who knows?
I hope they're aggressive with bans and unbans, actually. It's an approach that they've never really taken. It's kind of, up until really the last 12 months, unbans have not really been a thing. So this seems like a really good format where they could do that without it being horrendously costly in terms of monetary value. Like a lot of the decks that if you go onto like Goldfish or whatever, these Pioneer decks, and like the prices will creep up now, but most of them are cheaper than the current standard decks. Yeah. And stand to stay that way for quite a while, because, there's huge amounts of availability for a lot of these sets because they're not super old and they were, popular and recent. So there's huge amounts of printings. We're not reaching back to like 8th edition, which is, like 16 years ago, whatever it was, right? So there's good availability. So I hope
I'm old.
It's got something like that. Yeah, man. Yes, we are.
Played that standard.
Yeah.
And that's always been an issue with Modern is like Magic in terms of its player base around the original Zendikar set had a massive boom and player number spike. So all the sets that were printed prior to Zendikar, the print runs were low. Like there was not a high volume of cards out there. You then get this massive player spike. And so those Zendikar sets were not printed massively either. They were printed a bit more, but not as much. And then beyond there, that's when they started printing more of the sets and the releases and that sort of stuff to cater for the player base. But you were stuck in this thing where your cards from Mirrored and Block, like your Chalice of the Voids and things like that were ancient, were just ridiculously priced because there was just not enough of them. And hopefully with how they print stuff these days, and with this being much more recent, we shouldn't see that be too much of a problem. And I mean, prices will spike. There's no there's no two ways around it. And I know there's been a lot of people going on about
let's not get into
buyouts and things like that. We don't have Chris on here for our hashtag MTG Finance discussion. So, but prices will go up. If you've got some decks that you're considering playing and you're thinking of playing this format, then I suggest picking them up now. And it just gives you another reason to hold on to your cards that you're playing in Standard at the moment, because there's another format that they're more likely to be able to be played in. So
I really like that
pretty
point,
excited.
actually. That's really good, because having cards that just completely floor on price, and it might be a card that you've come to really enjoy playing and then it's just gone, can be disconcerting for a new player. So having a format that you can just port it straight to is brilliant. Well done, Wizards.
Yep, we can now play Field of the Dead immediately.
That's literally what I was going to say.
And on that bombshell,
we'll see you in 2 weeks, boys. Take it easy.
So I think we will leave it there. We've gone pretty long tonight, and it's definitely well past midnight. And I assume you're working tomorrow, Cracker. So have fun with that.
Thanks.
But that'll do us for now. We'll, like I said, we will have another podcast out before the next Mythic Championship, so we can have a bit of a discussion about how the metagame's looking heading into that. We won't get deck lists in advance like we did for this MC, because this is a tabletop one, but we should have a bit of an idea of how things are looking by then, so it should be a pretty good discussion. If you come up with any sweet brews for Pioneer, then we definitely want to know about them, especially if they're to do with the decks that we've talked about tonight. If you've got some good ideas for them, then yeah, definitely hit us up. So as usual, you can find us at the normal places. So yes, find us over on Twitter, at MagicBeansCast. Flick us an email, magicbeanscast@gmail.com, or hit us up on Facebook. Just search for Magic Beans Cast, as well as on YouTube. So, Chewy, I think you're talking about recording some Pioneer Leagues. I don't know if you've done that yet, but hopefully you will in the next week or so and get a video up there.
Yeah, and if anybody wants to send us a deck list, I'll do my best to put it together and do a bit of a feature if I can get the cards together.
Yep,
that'll be fun.
Good. Easy. All right. Well, yeah, that'll do us. If you want to find me on Twitter for any reason, you can find me at Peace Inc. Chewy, you are
at Chewy MTG,
and Cracker
Joel Hill _
Very good. And that'll do us for tonight. So thank you again for listening, and we will see you next time.